Welcome to the Ayahuasca Integration Podcast. If you know what Ayahuasca Integration is, it means that you are one of the 0.4% in the entire world who have sat in ceremony with ayahuasca, or maybe you've been planning to join the soul family on an adventure and you're doing your soulful sacred due diligence. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Out of nearly 8 billion people walking on this earth, you are part of a very small group of human beings that have been called to do this very deep, very sacred work. And I don't think that's a coincidence. There is something really deep within you that has recognized this call from our grandmother, ayahuasca, and you have answered it, or you are in the process of doing so when you feel safe enough. I'm really proud for you for being here and for showing up for your own inner work, and also for having the courage to step into something that most people will probably never understand. And I'm also very honored that I get to spend this time with you. I want to make sure that every single moment that I get to share with you can be truly valuable for your integration journey, because I know how challenging and confusing this work can be. My name is David Box, and I have been on this profound ayahuasca journey now for almost 10 years. And I'm also a professional transformational coach, integration coach. And I've been supporting leaders for almost 15 years now in the transformational coaching space. Leaders that are doing this deep inner work while simultaneously creating their outer impact in this world. And I have to say this, there has been nothing more exciting, rewarding, transformative, and incredible than the journey that I had with grandmother ayahuasca and all of the people that I got to meet on this path, the ayahuasca family. And over the past decade, I witnessed thousands of people step into this work with ayahuasca, and I've also seen the profound shifts and miracles that happens not just in the ceremony, but in the months and years and even decades that follow. When ayahuasca knocked on my door, it almost felt like an advent calendar of consciousness that opened up. Every ceremony was like a new window into my soul, revealing new layers, new gifts, new understandings, new traumas that I had to release. So many things that I could never even have imagined before. So this is sacred work. And before we dive into what integration really means, I want to share with you something really important that most people don't realize, but I'm sure you have already experienced this yourself. Because integration doesn't always happen after the ceremony. Because the moment you say yes to working with ayahuasca, the moment you book that retreat or make that conscious commitment and choice months in advance, your process of transformation can already be activated. Because the spirit world and your subconscious mind might already begin to stir things up and preparing you for the deep work that is ahead. So you might actually start experiencing things bubbling to the surface with surprising intensity weeks, even months before your retreat. It's like the universe is showing you, hey, this is where the pain lives. This is where the resistance is hiding. Or this is your most toxic relationship pattern. This is where your anger and sadness has been stored. Take a look in the mirror. And suddenly, relationship might become more challenging. Or you might feel an emotional depth or intensity or feeling deeply triggered for reasons that you can't quite understand. And this is amazing. So if that's happening for you right now, if you're in that pre-ceremony space and feel things are very intense and chaotic, please know you are exactly where you need to be, and it's a very important part of the integration process. It means the medicine is already working with you and that there is internal capacity inside of you and space to start moving that energy already. This is also your psyche beginning to prepare for the profound healing that is coming. And sometimes that preparation involves bringing things to the surface so they can be properly addressed in ceremony. A way that this actually have shown up for me was my last retreat a few weeks ago. An integration coaching client was flying all the way from Phoenix in America to Spain to join me for a retreat with my shamans from Colombia. They were here, but I had gotten sick a few days before he arrived. And I did not want to go to a retreat. And if it wasn't for this client coming, I would probably not have gone to that retreat at all, which would have I would have missed out on my greatest healing ever. Because the retreat was outside in the mountains in Spain, in a teepee, so it was going to get cold, and I was so sick. I had so much pain in my throat. I could not swallow. I felt like I couldn't walk, and I was just staying in bed sleeping. And I've had this infection since I was a child. I even had my tonsils removed. But this infection comes back year after year, multiple times a year. So because my client was here, I decided to go to the retreat and just see it as a sign that this is the energy that I need to work on. Very often, when we have that, this is energy I have to work on epiphany, it's usually not the energy you want to work on at the moment. You just want to feel better. So when the shamans saw me at the mountain, they said, you know what, ayahuasca is our antibiotics from the jungle, so don't worry. But I wasn't very hopeful. And I told ayahuasca when I was drinking the first cup, if you can heal this, I am all in on working with you, in creating my platform around my work with you, because this is so painful and I don't even know like how I will stay awake during the ceremony. And just an hour after that first cup was served, I could feel the energy working and my infection just getting better and better. I could swallow without pain. And during that night, I took 3 cups of ayahuasca and I completely transformed the pain and infection and the fever, and also understood that there were decades of old tears and crying that had been stuck here. And the infection that I was getting since I was a child was just all the crying and the tears that I never got to complete in childhood. And over decades and getting into adulthood and not wanting to cry because of all traumas, not releasing these old emotions, I, on the surface level, got an infection over and over again. Almost like my body trying to say, hey, there's some underlying elements here that we need to work on. So now I don't know if I'm ever going to have that infection again. And I'm really excited next time I get sick to see if I'm going to get it, if it's going to be as painful as before. Because ayahuasca really showed me in the last retreat that emotions can be stuck and create infections that we keep treating on a surface level. Yet sometimes the disease can be stuck on an energetic level, on a deeper level. And again, what was necessary to work on showed up before the ceremony so that it could be integrated. The word integration actually comes from Latin, from integer, and it means whole, complete, or untouched. So this is one of my favorite words in the entire world right now, because when we talk about integration in the context of ayahuasca work, we're literally talking about the process of becoming whole, of taking the fragmented parts of ourselves that we discovered or healed or transformed in ceremony and weaving them back together into a complete unified being. If you feel disintegrated, you might feel like the puzzle piece of you doesn't really fit into one picture. There are many different pictures and they are fighting with each other. Or you're hanging in this trapeze, this transformational trapeze. There's one part of you hanging on this side, another part of you hanging in that side, and you don't really know what side of you to trust. So I like to think of integration as the work of bringing our most alive parts back into alignment. Our untouched purity and innocence, our wild, soulful, deeply wise, multifaceted self that we always have been. I like to think of it as the process of bringing those untouched, pure, beautiful, essential energy of us, our most authentic energy, to the surface, weaving that part of us into every single part of our life. And this is also where the work of integration is a bit different than many other approaches within spirituality and therapy and coaching, because the intention behind the integration work that I do is that those parts of you are already complete. They're untouched, they're pure. They are your original version. They are already there. This is not a new muscle that you need to find or build. It's already within you. And our job is to uncover that energy, is to bring that true music and frequency of you to the surface into your life so that the outside and the inside can be resonating on the same energetic level that is the most purest, truest energy that you can create So therefore, there are less resistance because it's just naturally coming from you. And therefore, you enter this beautiful galactic river where you're floating with the universe and not against it. I love to think of integration like this because it reveals that integration isn't about adding anything, adding more and learning more strategies, adding something new to who you are. It's about reclaiming and embodying the wholeness that has always been you and has always been your birthright to be you. And probably, like me, a lot of what actually made you most alive as a child was something that you got told not to do or not to be. And therefore, a lot of your aliveness and your purest, most authentic self is something you compromised early on to fit into whatever cultural, family, religious system that you had to grow up into. So our job is to bring that back to the surface. So ayahuasca, she shows us the parts of ourselves that we have forgotten, rejected, or lost along the way. And integration is this sacred work of bringing all of those pieces back home to ourselves. So not just from a mental standpoint, not just through your journal, but spiritually, emotionally, physically, as well as mental. Integration is literally how do I embody all of the teachings and insights that ayahuasca brought into my life and make it real so that it actually is woven into the fabric of my existence. I've actually come to realize that integration is like the language of transformation itself. It's where transformation comes to life. It's where it becomes real. Because when we go through the transformational process with ayahuasca, we usually start with deep healing work. We have the crying, the purging, the releasing, the acceptance of parts of ourselves that we might have been running away from years or decades. We dive into our shadow, we meet our inner child, we connect with ancestors or spirit guides, we receive visions of who we're meant to become or who we truly are on the inside. All of these different processes happen in the ceremony and they're profound and life-changing in those moments. But what I've learned is that after 100 plus ceremonies and working with hundreds of people in their integration process, retreat after retreat, eventually, after we've done that initial healing, we release the trauma and process the grief and forgiven ourselves and others, we're left with a big fundamental question and sometimes a gap between who we were then with the wound and the pain and trauma and who we are now and who we're becoming. Who am I without all the pain? Who am I without that story? How do I walk in this world now that I'm no longer scared of the world outside or parts of me on the inside? So who are we going to be now when we don't have a wound that is defining us anymore? Who are we after all this anger is now transformed? Or the victim story that we rightfully had to carry because we were victims one time, but now it no longer defines us. So how are we going to keep writing the narrative of our own story? And that's when we cross what I call the bridge of integration. It's this gap between who we were and who we are becoming, and we start actually embodying that person in our day-to-day life. And this bridge can be one of the most challenging parts of the entire journey, and that is why real support is so important. After a decade of being a facilitator with integration at ayahuasca retreats and in my work as a professional transformational coach, I've seen most of us move through the same process and cycles when it comes to integration, healing, and transformation. So I feel like I know you already if you're committed to this path. And I also know so much of the beautiful gifts and rewards and miracles, but also challenges that you are going to experience or already are experiencing. And this podcast will speak to the most important findings and practices that I've experienced for myself when it comes to integration. And I will also share from my own integration journey, because ayahuasca, she has given me some of the toughest integration homework. And I actually refused to do many of them for years until I eventually just met the corner of my own existence and I couldn't go any further. And I just decided, okay, there is no other options. I will just do what she asked me to do. For example, giving away all my luxury belongings and beautiful things that I had and my well-paid job and titles, or going home to Norway for a winter to confront an abusive foster family that I hadn't seen since I was 5 years old. people that I was terrified of as a child and never really wanted to see again. But where ayahuasca said it's important for you to own your story and to show the inner child that you are now this adult person who can share his story in a safe, sacred space. I was also guided by ayahuasca to confront every single secret that I had inside, which was not fun. Some of these secrets had a lot of power over me. But she guided me through this homework so that I could be fully free on the inside. And it feels so delicious to not have any secrets and to feel completely free of shame and guilt. She even showed me a partner that I would meet on the romantic journey, even before I met him. And she showed me the spirit of my own unborn daughter. So, with all of this magic that I experienced with ayahuasca, I decided to just go all in with this work. That's why I'm here with you right now. And even though I can say it's been extremely challenging from time to time, this journey has been the most magical and miraculous journey of my life. And working with ayahuasca was like waking up from a trauma trance and finally learning to enjoy my life with every single part of me. She woke up creative gifts, music, and a heart that was buried under so much grief and anger and sadness that just desperately wanted to breathe and beat and love again. And I'm so eternally grateful for all her support and guidance. Whew. So in the next episode, I am going to share with you some of the fascinating scientific research that has been done the last years, specifically around ayahuasca integration. There was a huge global study with over 10,000 people where they interviewed so many different groups all around the world that drank ayahuasca. And then from that study, they separated a group of 1,630 participants where they asked specifically around integration and ayahuasca integration. So in the next episode, you can actually see concrete evidence and experiences that are a common theme and a thread that most of us face in this work. And the study also showed the reason why this podcast was born, because 53% of the people who participated in this survey said that they struggled after the ayahuasca ceremony. And many of them said that they did not have the support that they needed to integrate. And I want that to sink in for a moment, especially if you're one of them right now. More than half of the people who are doing this sacred work are struggling afterwards, feeling isolated, unsupported, and needing help to integrate. There's a lot of ayahuasca family that needs our support. And when I saw the statistics, I knew that I had to be a part of that solution. So that's one of the driving forces behind this podcast. It's also why we created the Ayahuasca Integration Alliance with different therapists, coaches, shamans, and why I developed also a specialized training for those who want to learn how to become a transformational integration coach, specifically who works with ayahuasca. When I read this survey, I realized that the lack of proper integration and support wasn't just leaving people confused and disconnected and sometimes even fragmented and disintegrated. It was actually preventing the full healing effect and potential of our beautiful grandmother of the medicine of ayahuasca from being realized in their lifetimes. And that's also why I'm so passionate about all of us having community and guidance, both from indigenous shamans and curanderos, but also from us from the Western world who have gone through the integration process ourselves and can put into words and can hold a sacred space for others who are going through this process. It's so important that we all have community. It's not just helpful, it's essential. And when I started my journey almost 10 years ago, I was so fortunate that the retreat center that I went to wasn't just offering ayahuasca ceremonies with different indigenous shamans every month. They also incorporated professional psychotherapy sessions in integration circles every single day that went on for 3 to 5 hours so that everyone got to share and be supported and witnessed and experience community and healing and feeling that they're being held. And this center, even though they had lots of challenges that got blown up all over the media, they also trained people to become integration facilitators. So I actually got access to a community of people who were not just doing the medicine work as a one-time healing experience, but who were committed to the long-term transformational process that ayahuasca facilitates. And that community became the greatest blessing of my entire journey. I love so many of the people that I met on this path. So shout out to Brett and Nick and June and Sarah and Colin and Ariana and Cesar and Erica, all of you. Looking back now 10 years later, I realized that the relationships that I formed in that integration training program became more than just friendships. They became soul family. We went through so many processes together, and it became a root system that kept me grounded and supported. And the people that I got to share this journey, they were yoga teachers and psychologists and medical doctors and traditional shamans from all over the world who went through this journey alongside me. And we became this soul family that held space for each other's darkest moments and also celebrated each other's breakthroughs. What was really beautiful about going into this training journey every single month and for all of these years was that I got to develop a very intimate, ongoing relationship with ayahuasca herself. And that is what's important for me on this podcast to bring forward to you, is that relationship that I have with ayahuasca, that we can have with ayahuasca if we show up with a lot of respect and humility and we take the integration process seriously. Even though I also have done like the homework on the teacher's desk many times, I just feel like the relationship with ayahuasca that we can create long-term is the most important part of this work, because it also reflects the sacredness, the humility, and the respect that we are cultivating in a relationship to ourselves. And I was really lucky because I felt like I almost got reparented by ayahuasca over these years. Some retreats and ceremonies, I would be an emotional 3-year-old. Another weekend, I would be a rebellious teenager. And then I would later be a young adult. And I would get to meet every single parts of me where there were stuck emotions and traumas and work through them and actually learn to integrate it at all of these different stages and state of being. So as we move forward together through this podcast and YouTube series, I want you to know that every episode is specially designed with your integration process in mind, and also for you to have something to support others with when they are integrating. So when you go to your next retreat, as a facilitator, as an integration coach or participant, you have tools to use for yourself, but also to share with others. And I'm here to support you in the process, not as someone who has all the answers, because God knows after 10 years in this path, I know nothing, but as someone who has walked this path and witnessed the profound transformation and miracles that's possible when integration is done with intention, respect, and humility, but also community and proper guidance. Together, we're going to explore how to turn your ayahuasca experience into a lived reality for healing purpose and service that extends far beyond the ceremonial space and into every aspect of your beautiful, expanding life. Welcome, my friend, to your integration journey and to the process. I'm honored beyond words to walk this path with you. My name is David Vox, and if you want to find out more information about the Ayahuasca Integration Alliance, visit ayahuascaintegration.org. You will also find there more information about our Ayahuasca Integration Coach training that starts twice a year. Have a beautiful week, my friend, and see you next time.